Chris, what is the latest on college football expansion, Mark? I think, Jason, people give me way too much credit of having some kind of insider knowledge. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Consider this. Oklahoma and Texas went to the SEC, USC, UCLA. The most insider information analysts in the sport, blindsided, didn't know. Boom, it hit everyone. So I will say this. This has been my blanket statement among the hundreds of hours at this point that we've discussed it both here and mostly on the main channel through call-in shows and so forth, is that I see it like this. We've got the SEC and the Big Ten, and we have a situation where they are going to survey the field and they are going to continue to look at candidates and review them from a football standpoint and all sports standpoint, an academic standpoint, and a TV ratings / media standpoint, how much attention they draw and how much their brand is worth. Put all those, and for some conferences, they may be prioritized 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, and for another conference, 5, 3, 2. You know, they all have different priorities, but they're measuring basically those components, and they're going to decide when they survey the field, does this institution / football program bring value to us in all these different areas, and how much do they? And other than that, I think the only other component is that if there continues to be counter punch, then that's going to spur the other conference to possibly make a move if they believe that they're falling behind. But probably where they sit right now, if neither one makes another move, there may not be another move. Although I do see Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and maybe somebody else being a fine addition to, geographically, you would think the SEC, but possibly the Big Ten.
It's interesting, Mark. I think currently in the college football world, it's as if there's a tag team wrestling match going on. Mm-hmm. It is, you got ESPN and the SEC in one corner, and then you've kind of got, I mean, maybe a handicap match if you want to call it that, and then you've got the Big Ten and you've got CBS and Fox in the other corner. And so, I mean, and yes, when you think about that initially, you know, what does that have to do with the playoffs now? I mean, but I think it has a lot to do with that, because to your point, the SEC and the Big Ten are clearly ruling college football, so to speak, right now. They hold all the cards, and so I still don't anticipate there being any kind of expansion until at least 2025, when you've got these teams into their corners, so to speak. You know, obviously it's going to be next year for UC and UCLA, and then they just announced that huge media contract a couple of days ago with CBS and Fox. And you know, just interesting that ESPN just kind of bowed out of the whole the whole situation. So and then like I said, you got the SEC, but I think, you know, the big, and you hit the nail on the head, Mark. The big question is, are they going to expand further? What does this landscape of college football look like? Are we going to move more? Are these teams going to break away from the NCAA? Are we going to have, you know, 2 or 3 huge, you know, mega conferences? I mean, you mentioned the Florida State and Clemson and stuff like that. Do they move to some of those teams move to the SEC? Does Notre Dame finally, do they ever join a conference? I mean, with the strength of NBC gaining a little bit from a college football overall perspective now with the Big Ten, and I think it makes sense probably for them to stay. I mean, right now, I think you know, with to stay as an independent, I should say. And so we still don't know when Oklahoma and Texas are going to move to the SEC. Is it 23? It could be 24, or just hold out till 25. So yeah, it's so hard to say right now, but I think nothing happens until 2025, in my opinion.
this TV contract that was just signed by the Big Ten speaks volumes, and we don't want to tear this too far away from Oklahoma, but the Sooners are joining the SEC, so it's relevant for a number of reasons. So just the dollar amount is just mind blowing, first and foremost. But beyond that, this is what strikes me, especially considering just my background and what I was involved with for 20 years, is that, you know, once Fox got into the regular season game and aligned with the Big Ten Network and the Big Ten, sure, they gave preference to the Big Ten. And we saw, of course, with ESPN building an SEC network, that they were drifting in that direction and aligning with the SEC. But still, let's understand that ESPN still had a huge contract with the Big Ten and still showed prominent Big Ten games on ABC and ESPN, still had a large portion of that. This is the first time since ESPN's been broadcasting college football that they do not have a contract with a major conference. So while they were more in line with the SEC previously, they still featured huge games in the Big Ten, still covered that conference. This will be the first time that they don't have a conference on their platforms at all. And so, how are they going to cover the sport? Because I think it would have been more impacted 10 years ago when we all just automatically flooded to ESPN for every studio show, every pregame, but now with Fox's emergence and now NBC is going to get into the game and be more of a factor all through the day on Saturday and not just kind of a Notre Dame standalone game. And even with platforms like this and a zillion others out there, people are more consumed in going to alternate routes for their information and for their entertainment. But still, it's ESPN's going to have difficult decisions to make in terms of journalistic integrity versus freezing out the Big Ten and just kind of, they're not going to ignore the Big Ten, but they don't want to promote or shine a light on, spotlight Big Ten games when they have no stake in it at all anymore. And again, this is the first time that ABC, and by extension ESPN, has not covered the Big Ten since 1966. It's not had Big Ten games on its air. I just think it's fascinating. And we also got to look into it with the way the TV contract was set up, where the Big Ten's going to have, and I got to think that this was a major factor in ESPN and them parting ways, is that the Big Ten got locked in noon on Fox, 3:30 on CBS, prime time on NBC, and they know that they've got a national game on a major platform, boom, 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 and that ESPN probably was like, oh, we can't guarantee we're going to give you the noon or the 3:30 or whatever the prime time game, because we've got the SEC, and it also seemed as though what was going to be left over for ESPN was going to be the fourth best game, and they just, for that kind of money, weren't going to take that.
Yeah, so I've been pretty consistent that I think Oklahoma and Texas move to the SEC in 2024. I just thought that 2023 might be a little too soon, based on the money situation, and I thought Oklahoma and Texas would be unwilling to wait until 2025 to sit around in a lame duck conference, and I don't know that Big 12 wants them to stay there as well. And so, Mark, for every point that you just mentioned here, I can't, at this point now, I'm laying more of my chips on the table for 2023. I have a hard time feeling that, or maybe not feeling, believing that ESPN is going to be willing to for a whole year be behind the Big Ten. From a you bring, obviously the SEC is not hurting from a revenue perspective or anything like that, but you bring in Oklahoma and Texas. At least Oklahoma is traditionally, they've been across all networks, right? Texas obviously has their own network, but that's not going to stay around for much longer. But Oklahoma's been on, they're on Fox quite a bit. They're on Fox. Nebraska game is on Fox this year. I don't think I'm trying to remember the first game. I can't remember. And
in the Texas game flip flops every year. It alternates between Fox and ABC / ESPN. Yeah.
So now if you look next year with losing, to your point, for losing all of these Big Ten games, they're going to want to bring in something new and flashy, and something that's going to take people's eye off the Big Ten and Fox and CBS and NBC. So I think even if ESPN absorbs or pays that exit fee, I mean, obviously it's never going to be public, right? But even if they help out in that manner, I think Oklahoma and Texas will be in the SEC next year. And I think this was, I could have went either way, but I think this being announced and, the ESPN really just kind of bowing out of the whole negotiation and the whole process, I think it's going to happen next year at this point.
Yeah, the other thing that points to that is just think about the strained relationship and the SEC wanting to move forward. We know Oklahoma, Texas are coming. We want to reformat the divisions and the pods or whatever we're going to do. We want to do that. We want to move forward. We don't want to be languishing. This was announced in the summer of 2021 for us to wait until the fall of 25 of something that's inevitable, and to have football programs and conferences that they're not going to stay in, and that relationship severed for that long. It just seems like a long time to let that just bad situation exist in that conference, in addition to, again, the SEC wanting to move forward with their new plan, including 2 major brands. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think from the, when you take it from the Big 12 perspective, let's say, let's go into a situation. Let's hypothetically say Oklahoma and Texas stay, for the 2023 season, and maybe even the 2024. Would the Big 12 have any interest in either Oklahoma or Texas winning that championship in the year that they're bringing their new toys, so to speak, to the conference? So I think it would just be it just seems like it would be a generally between all parties involved, the best time to move away.